Welcome to Southern Fried Baseball, brought to you by College Baseball Central, bringing you 90 feet closer to the greatest show on dirt. Here are your hosts.
Welcome in, College Baseball Central fans. Back here again, it's Nick and Jake. Nick, it almost feels like this is opening day for us because when we were planning for this, we wanted to have it in that 7-6 window so we could get on and watch those SEC games on Thursday. We got two great SEC games on tonight. I'm absolutely excited. It's going to be another intense week. How about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, you spoke about it. It's two big storyline series too. Obviously, the whole LSU storyline. You have Cam Johnson starting tonight against LSU, which is going to be a ton of fun. And then Ole Miss. Obviously, Ole Miss coming off losing to Texas. So that's going to be a great one too against Kentucky, who is throwing Ben Cleaver today and kept Jackson Jelkin on Friday. So yeah, it's good. If week 2 for SEC play is even close to anything that weekend number 1 was, then I will be very happy come Monday.
Yeah, let's start with that Kentucky Ole Miss game. The Kentucky Wildcats at 3-0 will travel to Oxford to take on Ole Miss, who is 1-2. You mentioned Ben Cleaver is getting the start tonight with Jelkin. Staying in his Friday night role. It's a little bit of a blessing in disguise that Ben Cleaver had such a short outing last week because he can have this quick turnaround and it's really not that big of a worry. It's Elliott versus Cleaver. It's weird because we've talked about how Cleaver's almost been like a Friday night guy and he's pitching in the quote-unquote Friday night game. What do you think it's going to take for Ole Miss to get back into the winning series column this weekend?
See, I actually liked him a lot today. I'll just talk about it just from a quick betting standpoint. They were too high of a favorite for me to personally bet. When I saw the Ben Cleaver was announced, I didn't want to touch it, thinking that it was going to be Jelkin or knowing there was a chance that it was still going to be Jelkin. But yeah, then once that got announced, it kind of skyrocketed up a bit. But yeah, I think this is a great rebound spot for Ole Miss. I mean, you get back home, fans should be excited. Should be a sold out house there like usual. And then, yeah, I mean, you're bringing in a Kentucky team coming off a very, very impressive weekend against Alabama. And not just we talked about a couple of pitchers already, but from an offensive standpoint, you're getting Tyler Bell. It sounds like he's going to play. Sounds like he's full go from what I hear. I think he only played in one of the games last week, if I'm not mistaken. So
yeah, and he DH'd, which I think he's going to DH probably tonight.
Yeah, I could see that because it's still.
Let's double check and make sure that the lineups haven't come out because again, we are 30 minutes away. So
that is true. Is that 7:30 or 8? Yeah, I was thinking 8, but
yep. Tyler Bell's sitting in the 4-hole DHing. Luke Lawrence is playing short. Hendel's playing second. Tyler Senry is playing third. That's a solid lineup. Yeah.
Tyler Cerny's back too. He also missed last weekend. So this is one where I'm excited to see Kentucky's offense because of how much power they showed last week against Alabama. I think that's what I was most surprised with. It's not that they scored runs because I think we both anticipate they usually find ways to score runs. That's just what Nick Migione does. But the way they did it was impressive. And if they look like that again this weekend, especially on the road, then this is a team that has a real chance to finish top 4 or 5 in the conference.
I'm really intrigued by this matchup personally because Ole Miss has kind of looked meh in their 2 weekends. Yes, they beat Texas on Friday night. Yes, they have Becerra and a bunch of those guys, but I think they got to get more from that shortstop role in Owen Pano. I'm not really sure why he's playing as the guy that's playing behind him is playing a little bit better. I think Ole Miss has got to get more out of that. And then I know Hedden Federico gets on base a ton at the top of the lineup, but the average is not where it's supposed to be. That's the thing for me is this one in LSU specifically, I don't think Ole Miss is really as good as Kentucky. It's going to be how much the park kind of factors. And I always kind of forget every single year that it's really tough to go and play on the road in the SEC. I went with Kentucky because I feel like Kentucky's that much better than Ole Miss. But again, you got the Sheriff Hunter Elliott. They got Cade Townsend, who's questionable, so he'll likely pitch at a sign this weekend. But for me, it just feels like it's set up for Kentucky. You don't have to speed Jelkin up with the arm issues. You get Cleaver on Friday. This feels like it's going to be Kentucky tonight. I think it'll be close, but good teams find ways to win, and Kentucky's a good team, and they're going to find a way to win this weekend.
Yeah, you and I both have them taking 2 out of 3. I have Ole Miss's 1 win as tonight, and then I do think they win. I think Jelkin and Nate Harris both take care of business on Friday and Saturday, just because of, talk about TBA. You never want to see, especially this early in the season, a TBA as your second pitcher. It's even if I get why they don't, especially in a short week, chances are they would normally move Will Libbert up, but since he just threw on Sunday, that's probably the reason why. So it'll be interesting to see what they do.
And he threw a lot. Remember how he had the no-hitter?
Yeah, I think he was like 6 2/3, I think, or he made it through all the way through 7. But yeah, so this, I think we both have them 2 out of 3, and like I said, I think Kentucky gets game 2 and game 3.
Yeah, for me, it feels like Ole Miss has to be perfect when they win, and being perfect and getting that clutch hit is not a recipe, and that's ultimately why I went with Kentucky. Almost the exact same series for me too as well. Let's move on. Oklahoma Sooners, fresh off their midweek loss to Southeastern, had about an hour west to Baton Rouge to take on LSU. LSU dropped 2 of 3 to Vanderbilt. Oklahoma took 2 of 3 at home against Texas A&M. We got Kason Evans against Cam Johnson tonight. No changes in any of the rotations. Does the box play a factor with people picking LSU? Kind of like a train wreck we saw last year with OU and LSU.
Yeah, a little bit. And I think not just because it's the box, I also think it's people, if they don't know where Cam Johnson transferred from LSU, and now he's getting a start back at the box on a Thursday night, late night prime time, and coming off a 7-walk performance last week against Texas A&M. Was that a kind of shot in the pan of like, okay, it was a bad outing. That happens to almost every arm. Or is that, okay, he's reverting back to the old Cam Johnson, which would not be good news for Oklahoma this weekend or moving forward. And then on the other end, Kason Evans has to be better. If he's not any better this week, this is probably his last shot in the rotation. I think, and I heard some people talk about it this week, I think it would be great for him, depending on how he looks, like I said, if they almost do like Arkansas did with Gabe Yackel last year. Whereas like Gabe Yackel started off like he was a starter. It clearly wasn't working out, but they knew how good he was out of the pen. Kason Evans, we saw how good he could be out of the pen last year at times. So that like they kind of know if we revert him to the pen, he at least would have a role where he can help us. So this pitching matchup is so intriguing tonight. I don't know how either they could both throw amazing or they could both absolutely, for lack of a better term, just crap the bed, and it could look really bad. But if you're picking me, I don't know. I would say LSU because of the box and Cam. It's going to be tough to travel there. But I can't touch this LSU team right now.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel. Again, we have lineups out tonight. Here's you an interesting one. Cerna in the 4-hole DHing. Pearson playing third base in the 5-hole. Caraway playing second base with Stanfield batting 9th. It's an interesting lineup. I think Jay's throwing out all the stops with the lineup.
That's a very offensive lineup, and just saying let's hope we don't have to turn too many double plays or anything like that up the middle. So yeah, that's interesting. But yeah, go ahead with what you were going to say.
I was going to say, I feel like that's going to play into OU because they play this like chaos brand of baseball where they like to run, they like to get after it, they like to take extra bases, and they really are going to challenge Caraway at second base and Pearson at third base, I think, all weekend, at least tonight. This is a weird one because I remember going back to week 2, I said, do you really trust Cam Johnson? Because we've seen 2 years of him being subpar. It's kind of how I feel a little bit about Kason Evans.
Yep.
I feel like the hay's kind of starting to get into the barn for some of these pitchers. It's not like Kason Evans is going to suddenly turn it on. I say this, and this is going to get clipped. He's not going to throw 6 innings of shutout baseball, especially not against this OU team. They punished A&M last week for their bullpen issues, and I really do think it's going to be more of the same. I think it's going to be a shootout, and then from there, I think LSU's going to have to win one kind of in a unique way. But for me, the thing I'm most intrigued about is, does Oklahoma's bullpen kind of step up a little bit?
Yeah.
A&M did a fantastic job chasing all 3 starters. The bullpen stepped up at times. But again, they brought Bodine back twice. I don't think that's really a recipe for success. So they got to get long starts out of these starters.
Yeah, and then just to switch it to the offensive side, which LSU offense is going to show up? There we've seen sometimes where they light up the scoreboard and it's like, okay, this is the offense we expect because they have, I don't know, 6 or 7 guys in their lineup that are probably going to get drafted. In other games, it just absolutely doesn't, against bad pitching too. Like, it's not like some of the games where they haven't scored is because okay, they faced a great arm or a great bullpen. It just hasn't shown up. It's very confusing.
It's weird for me because it feels like both a passive offense and an offense that likes to chase. Like, they don't really seem to do it.
Everybody else is waiting for the guy behind them to
Yeah,
get the big hit.
Like
it just feels like, okay, like I don't have to be the guy, but at some point somebody has to.
Yeah. What do you like about that quote unquote Saturday matchup that we're getting tomorrow with LJ Merciless and Cooper Moore? That feels like the one that LSU has to win.
See, I think that's the one that Oklahoma has to win, just because I think Mercurius, just because I think he's been their best arm. He's been their best arm. I think William Schmidt has been, at least personally, I think William Schmidt's been good. I know he wasn't he was okay, not great against Vandy, but I think he's been their best arm. So I think, yeah, and especially they'll be facing Cord Rager, you talk about the box making a difference. You're getting a freshman coming into the box, and it could be in a rubber match game. That's when it could get in somebody's head. I mean, so I actually really do I like Oklahoma tomorrow. I hope we get it from a betting standpoint at the same price we got today, or I think they're like plus 100, because I will be all over Oklahoma. So from that standpoint, like I said, I think this gets split going into Sunday. And I think you talked about the bullpen, and you talked about Oklahoma's bullpen has to step up. I think they do. And it's also because I've trusted what my eyes have seen through the first 5 weeks and not just last weekend, just taking it as a whole versus the LSU bullpen as a whole. We saw that debacle even if you leveled it down to last weekend, that bullpen was in shambles. So that's why I can't remember what you did. I picked Oklahoma to take 2 out of 3 in this series. I think tonight is the one that LSU has to get. And then I think Oklahoma tomorrow, and then we'll see what happens on Sunday or Saturday this weekend.
I took Oklahoma. Micah took Oklahoma. Andrew went with LSU. Some notes: it is 2:00 on Saturday, so the freshman does avoid a Saturday night at the box. But
I don't care.
It's going to be a tough one. Prove it. You're starting to get April. DVH always has a quote that March and April is when your freshmen have to start being upperclassmen. I think that's kind of where we are. But I think it's going to be an exciting series. Probably the series of the weekend for me, Texas Longhorns, I think for everybody actually. Texas Longhorns, who are ranked second in the nation in some polls. Some metrics have them third, versus the Auburn Tigers, who I have at second. A lot of metrics have them at second, but D1 has them at third. It is at Plainsman. What do you think is going to be the biggest key to the series? Because it doesn't feel like, hey, what does Auburn have to do to win this series? Hey, what does Texas have to do? This feels about as 50-50 as it's going to get.
Yeah, these are the two best, 2 of the top 3 rotations. I will say there's, because I'll add Florida in there too. These are the 2 of the top 3 rotations in the country, or not in the country, but in the SEC right now. Which one lives up to it this weekend? Because we can look at both of these schedules, and there's not a ton in it. Texas, obviously, the best team they faced was Ole Miss last week. It wasn't great on Friday, but then obviously,
there's a caveat. They didn't have talent. They didn't face Townsend. They didn't face Fluky a few weeks ago.
No, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the staff facing off the best offense they faced.
I was going to say, this feels like Texas's prove it weekend from an offensive standpoint. Like, you and I have been talking for weeks, like, oh, how good are they? How good are they? Like, I think prove it this weekend.
And I will say this is definitely a better ballpark to hit in. It's going to tell us more of, because we've seen what it's like to hit in Austin. That's a big yard, and they've made it look small so far. That's why I like Texas. I think we said, we keep pushing it, kicking the rock down the road, as they say, about this Texas offense, but it keeps delivering most of the time. And this Auburn offense feels like it's been a lot more up and down this year. They obviously were projected to have a better offense. I think I had thought they'd be the best offense in the SEC before the season started. They still have that ability to. It just hasn't clicked all at the same time. Not to doubt what Mizzou's pitching staff is, but it's not Texas's. And they scored 2 runs, thanks to a Bub Terrell home run in the 8th on Friday and knocked the lights out. And then Saturday went extra innings and won 4-3. So this offense is a little bit questionable for me still versus the Texas offense. I think if you compare both these pitching staffs, they've been fairly equal. Like numbers say it's been Auburn by a smidge, but these have been like the top 2. So that's where it kind of broke down for me, was to take Texas 2 out of 3. And also I think the experience that Texas has versus Auburn being still kind of young, with most of those guys being sophomores.
So this is kind of a 2-parter. What do you see being more of the case? Do you see the offense that Auburn rolled out against Georgia Tech, or do you see the offense that Texas did against Tarleton?
I don't know. The midweek, I hate to take offense stuff from midweeks, especially when I think Georgia Tech Auburn did too. So there's not really much of an excuse. Has a tough weekend coming up. So it's also like, especially once you get down, you don't want to like run all those arms out there and kind of waste guys for the weekend. So I hate to kind of put it from that standpoint. When you don't hit well, I think that says more than when you do. But yeah, I don't put a lot on just the midweek. I think, especially now, we have such big sample sizes on these 2 teams. Like right now, literally, like Auburn only has 21 home runs. WRC plus is at only 115. So it's not fantastic. That 115 is a little bit over average. For people who don't know, like 100 is literally national average, which puts you at basically number almost 175, 150. So yeah, that's not great. But this offense can erupt. I just trust the sustained success that I've seen from Texas so far.
Yeah, that's kind of how I am. We mentioned it with Case and Evans about going out and shoving. I mean, we're 5 weeks into the year. Like, I think Timo's has improved. I think Mendoza does have more power. Let's call it game by game. Ruger Riojas versus Jake Marciano. Who you taking?
This is the one that I think Auburn gets.
Interesting. I think this is the one that Texas actually gets.
I love it. We're always different.
I know. Let's go Harrison versus Sanders. I have this one going to Auburn.
Yeah, I got this one going to Texas.
Probably the best Sunday matchup, and probably the only one where you can kind of debate if Volantis isn't the best. Dylan Volantis versus Alec Petrovic.
Yeah, Petrovic has been really good. Surprisingly, he wasn't even projected in at least anybody that I saw with CBC have him projected to be in their starting rotation at all, and he's been very good. But yeah, I got to go with Volantis here. It's just until proven otherwise. Yeah, he's just a stud.
Bullpen wise, do you favor Texas or Auburn? Because Auburn's, for as much as we talked about Texas's bullpen, Auburn's right up there with them.
Yeah, so let me put it this way. I favor the depth of Auburn's, like the amount of arms they've been able to throw there, like successfully, and that have given them good innings. I favor the high back end of Texas. So
I would say that. So I don't know. I mean, Burns has been kind of up and down though.
I still trust him. I still think he's one of the best. I wouldn't call him closers, but kind of one of those backs like setup closer types in the SEC. So that's where I think, and that's why I have Texas winning this series, because I do think with the lack of offense that Auburn has shown consistently, those pitchers can get deep into the games. Like if you get 6 innings out of them, I think that's where the high-end arms for Texas take over. Now, if it becomes a shootout or just something like that, and you actually rely on the full depth of the bullpen, I would take Auburn from that standpoint.
I like it. Probably the complete 180 of these pitching staffs that we've been talking about. The Texas A&M Aggies welcome the Georgia Bulldogs to College Station. Projected starters for that one is a TBA on Sunday, so not very good for Georgia. A&M is going with Sadeo, Moss, and Sims again. Volcho and Dylan Viggy. I've only Big U. Thank you for that. Are going in that one. I did want to come up with an outrageous stat from Aggie Baseball News. Georgia is averaging 3 0.14 home runs a game. I know that they've been hitting the cover off the ball. I didn't realize it was that high. For reference, that's nearly a home run per game higher than Texas A&M.
Yeah, it's a home run and a half higher than a lot of teams. It's the power, and it's the same thing he's done previous years, and it works. It has worked in regular seasons in the past. It just hasn't worked come postseason because of the pitching staff. Pitching staff has been a lot better this year so far, especially starting pitching. Bullpen I still have a lot of question marks there, but yeah, I would assume Sunday. I think they're trying to decide just because last week didn't go exactly how they wanted from a starting standpoint. I think it should still be. I think it should be Matt Scott personally.
Yeah, that's who I would go with too.
That's who I think. I know Ishikawa is good and has the stuff, but I think the question mark and why it's TBA Sunday. I think they want to see how the rest of the weekend goes, because using Matt Scott bullpen last weekend, it worked. Like that's when he definitely did his job in that Tennessee game when Ishikawa gave up a bunch of runs early. Tennessee went up 5-0 and brought in Matt Scott, and he did his job and held him at bay and let Georgia have that comeback victory. So that was impressive. I think part of it is, especially when you have these two-way guys, what do you want to do with Ishikawa from like a DH/starting pitcher standpoint? It changes a lot in the lineup. So that could be the case where I think I'm sure Scott and Ishikawa both throw Sunday. It's just probably working out the lineup of which order they want to go with. So I think that's why I'd be TBA right now.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that DH thing. I think that's always something to take into account with Ishikawa. I think the other thing too is if you're Wes Johnson, you have to feel like you're going to get one of these starters chased early. And you almost have to prepare for that. But you also know you can probably hit your way back into a game. So you don't need to punt when you're down 5-0. I think the thing for me is we saw what A&M looked like after they had a really, really taxed bullpen at the end. It's another taxing lineup, another grinded out lineup. I think they have to have a starter go 5 innings if they expect to win this series. I think that's got to be a given. Can they get it is going to be the big question, as Moss hasn't really looked that good. Sadeo has been kind of up and down. But I think if A&M, it's limiting the amount of bullpen arms because, again, they lost Stewart. They lost another arm. Yeah. MJ Bollinger's just been kind of MIA. I mean, this is a taxed bullpen, and it's only the second week of SEC play.
Yeah, and I think I was surprised. You and I are the only two that took Georgia, so we kind of both lean the same way here. I think it goes back to both these offenses I trust. I think we know what we're getting from them week in and week out. They haven't really had, I would say, take out the pin weekend that Texas A&M had. Neither team had like a down weekend yet. So the powers worked for both. Hitting for average. Obviously, Hakopian being healthy makes a huge difference, as we saw last weekend against Oklahoma. That ball to left center field, wind could have been blowing in at 20 miles an hour, and it still would have gone out.
Or Sorrell, the Sorrells that he hooked on the line.
Yeah, the Sorrell one. So, yeah, Georgia getting out. This is the first time, though, Georgia has left the state of Georgia all season. So that could play a factor. Obviously, A&M, it's a tough place to play. Everybody knows the whole ball three chants that get going. The bubbles.
Yeah, it's a tough place to be a pitcher. It's a tough place to have bullpen issues too.
Yeah, definitely. But I like what I've seen, and I was texting our group this last week. Figgy got hit around a lot last year at Michigan, and it was kind of a surprise. It was a surprise transfer into Georgia. It was like, how is this going to fit? Or is this going to be a Wes Johnson turnaround like he does sometimes? And so far, it has. Like him being at a 2.31 ERA, and he threw the best against Tennessee last week was not something I had on my bingo card. So if they can get the same out of Volchko as he has been, where he's been very good, if Figgy throws anything close, I really like that matchup with him and Weston Moss on Saturday. I think he's been the better arm so far. And then you kind of leave it up to, we talked about the TBA, and then Aiden Sims, we talked about going into last week, he'd been their best arm. Obviously, last weekend, like some of the things like wind obviously didn't help and some of the circumstances, but was that just an off weekend, or is that who Aiden Sims actually is moving forward?
Yeah, because if you remember correctly, he wasn't actually supposed to be the Sunday guy.
Correct.
He was supposed to be the midweek guy.
Yep.
I want to make a very bold prediction. I feel like one of these games is going to be a pitcher's duel. For as much as we've talked about the offenses and the bullpens, it feels like one of these games is going to be like a 3-2. I don't know which one it's going to be. I also feel like there's no like Sunday will be like 15-11. But that would be the most shocking thing to me is if we get a pitcher's duel.
That would be shocking. Now, I would say these arms are terrible. So it depends on what you consider a pitching duel. Like if these games, I think they'd be happy if their pitchers, if they limit the other team to 5, like each game. I think both coaches would be very happy 4 or 5 because that means you give these two explosive offenses a chance to win.
I would almost say both these staffs are SEC bad. Like they're definitely kind of near the bottom of the SEC.
SEC, yeah, but I meant like in the country
in general.
Bad. Yeah, but in the SEC, obviously bottom
Yep.
half.
You and I both went Georgia. Everybody else went Texas A&M. Let's move on to I think two teams that are probably going completely different directions right now. The Florida Gators head on up to Sewell. They're leaving Florida for the first time to face the Alabama Crimson Tide. Florida sits at 3-0 after their sweep of South Carolina. Alabama sits at 0-3. This one for me, before I kind of ask you this, feels like a real prove-it series for both teams. Both these teams one's flying under the radar as a bad team, in my opinion, in Alabama, and then one's flying under the radar as a good team in Florida. How do you kind of see these series playing out right here?
I think you talk about a prove-it series. It's a prove-it series for the Florida offense. I think just from that standpoint, their pitchers have turned out like, hey, they got the bulletin board material from Q. Liam Peterson's been great. Aiden King, his ERA is still 0, and it's week 6. So nothing going on there. The crazy thing is he has a loss, which is wild, with an ERA of 0. And then Cooper Walls has been, I would say, as expected, coming in from Kansas. Like they project him to be like we're bringing him in.
Hawaii. He came in from Hawaii.
Oh, Hawaii.
Wrong Cooper.
That's what I was thinking of. Yes, I knew it was Cooper. But so it'll be interesting to see because Alabama's coming. Alabama just found a couple ways to lose to Kentucky, and Kentucky's going to do that to teams. Like what was the game they were up? I think they were up like 7-4 or 8-4. Found a way to lose, and then the 2 runs that gave up the tying run and the go behind run were both sack bunts or like squeeze bunts by Kentucky. And it was after just a misplay in the field. LeBron hasn't been fantastic. He's been good, but he also can't be the only guy. And I think we keep harping on that I think we've said this on every show where
we've corrected each other each time with Brady Neal, but
yeah, it's okay. You can't have 2 guys, especially in this SEC. So I'm interested to see what Florida has offensively, though. I just go back to this. They have to be better than they have been. They're getting absolutely carried right now. I will say that. Talk about guys who have 1 guy hitting, or Florida has also 2. But it's 2 of the best hitters in the country. So I really would like Florida here, mostly because of the pitching staff. I think you really win Friday, Saturday, just until like Tyler Fane's A&Ms haven't lived up to par ever since those first couple of weekends where we were high on them. And then Miles Upchurch, you're getting a freshman in another SEC star. And it's just the pressure that's, even though you're at home, it's the behind the scenes pressure of we're 0-5. We could be 0-5 and we're risking getting swept twice.
That's my bold prediction, by the way, is I think Florida goes in and sweeps.
What did I have? No, I had 2 out of 3.
This feels like a blink if you miss it series with the way that Florida's pitching has been going. I know that they didn't hit the best against South Carolina last weekend. I think that they're doing just enough. And I know that I said last week when you were sick that Alabama's been flying by of like a just win baby. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what Florida's been, but Florida's had the pitching to kind of survive that. And
I think
Alabama
part of it is, sorry to interrupt real quick. I think part of it is because the Alabama, we saw them, a lot of people only saw them one weekend, and it was the Jacksonville weekend. That's probably when they played the best they have all season. And they haven't looked like that the rest of the year.
Even then, they dropped a game against Houston on Sunday.
Yeah, but that's still but I would still.
But I'd have to go in and look at the updated stats. But coming in, they were 16th in average and 13th in ERA. So, I mean, like I said, the record's good. Like they're kind of an underrated, weird team already, almost like a Kentucky-esque. But this just feels like they've whiffed on a few of these transfers. The bullpen's not as deep as they thought. Adams, I don't think, has taken that next step forward.
Correct.
To be that kind of elite Saturday guy. And for me, Aiden King and Liam Peterson have. That's really kind of the difference for me. And Florida's rolling right now. And there's just something to be said about when you're hot, you're hot. And I think that's what really made me go and pick Florida.
The offense isn't, but the pitching.
The pitching has been hot.
Yeah, I don't know. And it goes back to this thing you said towards the very beginning of the show. It's hard to sweep on the road in the SEC. This is a very unscientific breakdown. That just what I feel like. Alabama steals one of the three. I couldn't tell you which three. It's going to be very hard to predict, but it just seems like they're going to, just because you can't start off 0-6. Like that's tough to bounce back from, especially even to make the tournament. Like we talk about that golden line every single year. You have to get 12 plus wins in the SEC if you want to get into the tournament. If you start off 0-6, and then you basically got to run off a lot for the net. You got to go basically 12 and 12.
I mean, A&M and Florida both started 0-9, and they had to steal some series for some top 5 teams, if you remember correctly.
Yeah,
like they had to get and Florida, and that's weird because we talked about Florida, and we talked about A&M last year as being this disappointing. When they're going to figure it out? This might just be what Alabama is. Like they might just be like. All right, we're at the halfway park. Let's go ahead and thank our folks over at Home Field for sponsoring us. Cue the Gris voiceover.
Before we get back to the action, we've got to tell you about the best gear in college sports. The place to go is Home Field Apparel. Check out the Diamond Classics collection. High-quality throwback jerseys for your favorite team. From the Arkansas Razorbacks to the Vanderbilt Commodores, Home Field has you covered. Home Field's the only apparel partner of College Baseball Central. Gear up for game day by visiting homefieldapparel.com.
Welcome back, folks. We'll kind of breeze through these next 3 series as they are a little bit quicker, and then I have some Q&As for you, Nick. Let's get kind of the longer ones out of the way. Vanderbilt Commodores come into Mississippi State. It's Brian O'Connor's first SEC series. Mississippi State sits at 1-2. Vanderbilt sits at 2-1. Was this one an easy or a hard one for you to pick?
It was easy in terms of who would win the series. I had to double think if I wanted to pick a sweep, but I did. I just don't know. In this one, I said I don't know when Alabama would win a game, but it felt like they would. This one, Vandy's on the road. And looking at it, I can't see Connor Fennell winning, especially against how good Ryan McPherson's been. Valencius, I can't remember which brother announces it which way. It's either Valencius or so, and then versus Wyatt Nadeau, who's kind of forced into this Saturday role. And then Vandy being TBA on Sunday is never something you used to see, or like at all in this Ted Corbin era. And that's a true TBA. Like I really don't think they have a clue who they're starting on Sunday. Versus Mississippi State's going with Duke Stone, who's been good, solid. I wouldn't say great, but he's been good enough to where he can hold this Vanderbilt offense down enough to where I think Mississippi State can outscore him. So I think Mississippi State bounces back. I think it was a great wake-up call. I mean, we talk about how tough it is to travel to the Hog Pen, especially your very first weekend in SEC play. Now you get back home. You talk about a fan base that is riled up and ready. Like they've been ready since O'Connor got hired to kind of pack this place and just go nuts. It was what they say. It was whatever it was, 14,000 people at the alumni game in November. It's gonna be whatever the standing room only that they can fit in there this weekend. I think it's gonna be a great series. I can't get the picture out of my head of the Vanderbilt I saw last weekend. Even though they won the series against LSU, it was like the ugliest series, and I think that is more of who Vandy is. And also, we saw Vandy. The other good competition they played was out in Vegas, and went 0-3. So I think Mississippi State's better than anybody they played so far. So yeah, I think Mississippi State definitely wins this series. I picked them to sweep. I can't remember what you did, but yeah, I think Mississippi State wins this series in a sweep.
Yeah, I went with the sweep too as well. I mean, this is a step up in competition, and every time Vanderbilt stepped up, they haven't delivered or even looked competitive. This was actually a pretty easy one for me. I mean, this has been, like you said, the one that you've circled on the calendar. Like all the lounge people, I'm sure, have been planning their menus specifically for this week for when Vandy comes to town. It's going to be rowdy. It's going to be raucous. I think that they sweep. It just feels like Vandy is a class below Mississippi State because I've seen both these teams in person. I think they win one. The thing for me, too, that is Vanderbilt doesn't have a bullpen on top of a TBA. Like, that's the other thing is if some of these teams have TBAs, like, they might have one of the weakest bullpens in the SEC. And Mississippi State has the deepest lineup in the SEC. So it's kind of like a weird catch-22. The only thing for me is if Brian O'Connor can kind of solidify what he's going to do with a lineup standpoint, who they can pitch hit, figure out those roles. But other than that, this feels like a very clean sweep for Mississippi State. Another one that's probably going to be a pretty clean sweep, Arkansas goes to Founders to take on South Carolina. Arkansas is 2-1. South Carolina is 0-3. This is not the Founders of 4 or 5 years ago where it's a tough place to play. But the flip side of that is there's probably a lot of Arkansas fans that are going to be traveling to this series. So it's going to have to be one of those like old school kind of midweek vibes. It was a clean sweep, I believe, for South Carolina to lose. Let me double check. Yep. All of us except Gris and Micah picked them to sweep too as well. Is that kind of what you're seeing too? You think this will be another kind of no sweat one?
I don't know about no sweat because once again we talked about this. It's still on the road in the SEC, and I would say the rowdiness of this Founders Park might be more rooting against Pulmonary than even rooting for South Carolina at this point, just because it is getting kind of ugly. I just couldn't find a win for South Carolina unless what Josh Gunther has done the last 2 weeks is really real, which is possible because now we've seen it twice against Clemson, who's a very good offense, and Florida, who I would say is a good, not great offense. So now you're getting an Arkansas team who has struggled offensively at times. They were better last weekend. But so unless Gunther's real and steals one, the problem is you're facing Gabe Gack on the other end. And nothing has really shown me from a South Carolina offense standpoint that was supposed to be the high mark of the team this year. Nothing has shown me that they're going to really put up a ton of runs on him. And then the Arkansas bullpen coming in afterwards. We saw they were just nails last week. Outside of the game, they lost because Ace Reese carried Mississippi State got 5 of the RBIs. It's just the bullpen's been lights out. So I don't know. Dietz needs to be, I would say, from a negative standpoint, if you're an Arkansas fan, Dietz needs to be better. Like if you want Dietz to be the Saturday guy all year long, and I know it might just be one of those things that will take him time. I mean, he's missed the last 2 years due to injuries. Last year was a freak one, getting hurt in the bullpen, was like with the band just snapped back and hit him. That's not something you can write. So it's one of those, maybe it's just going to take him time. The talent is there. You see it like on some hitters, he'll just go like 1, 2, 3, and it's like, oh my gosh. And then others, he can't find the plate, and it's from like hitter to hitter and like inning to inning. So it's just not severe, like hasn't been extremely consistent. So I think they want to see him have a very good weekend, and obviously this is the right time and place to do that.
I think for me, and this is almost kind of like a cornball-y type thing, is Arkansas's looked really good against good teams and really bad against bad teams. And South Carolina is a bad team. That's the only thing.
We said this Monday. It's like that's what we get for doubting Dave Van Horn up until SEC play. It's just like, what the heck? But I will say Arkansas is still striking out a ton. And this isn't a pitching staff in South Carolina that should strike. This isn't like they don't strike out a ton of people. Even when they held Florida hitless, I think there was only 6 strikeouts, like up to like 9 innings. So this isn't a team that strikes out a ton of hitters. So if they strike out a lot this weekend as well, then it's like, okay, maybe this isn't a hitting philosophy, and maybe it's just the players you have on this team this year. And that's when I worry about moving forward when you face a pitching staff like Auburn, like Texas, like Florida's, like Tennessee's has shown. Like, what's that going to look like when you have these strikeout arms coming at you?
Yeah, that's kind of how I am with that too as well. I think this is one of those ones where if Arkansas loses the series, everybody will kind of like raise an eyebrow. I think Arkansas will have to beat themselves. Last one, the upstart Missouri Tigers go on the road for the first time in SEC play, heading down to Lindsey Nelson to take on Tennessee. Tennessee again 1-2. Missouri is 0-3. I have this as a bounce back spot for Tennessee. I think that they go out, dominate one of these ones. Missouri's much improved, but I mean, this is a tough matchup for Missouri against Tennessee.
Yeah, we both picked this a sweep. I don't want to downplay how good Missouri starting pitching has been. New pitching coach that they got from Virginia has obviously been kind of great, I guess, year to have for these pitchers. Javin Pimentel was good. Was it his freshman year or sophomore year before he got hurt last year? Is it his freshman or sophomore year where he was pretty good in the SEC, and then obviously got hurt last year and missed all year with Tommy John. And then Josh McDevitt kind of came out of nowhere, surprisingly, 3-0 with a 2.49. That's not what you normally hear from Mizzou, who had an ERA in the 9s last year. That's right, 9. And this pitching staff has been a lot better. So this is nowhere close to we're just going to write this Missouri team off as we did last year. They're still scrappy offensively, very athletic. They didn't look like it last week against Auburn as much, but obviously we talked about this Auburn pitching staff ad nauseum earlier, so that kind of explains it. But now you're also running into Tennessee with Coons, Mack, and Blanco, who for the most part shut down a very good. We talked about how many home runs Georgia is hitting. All three of those guys threw extremely well. Coons got basically two big hits were kind of what gave him up. And then Mack the same way. Like outside of that, Mack had 10 strikeouts, looked very good. And Evan Blanco is just steady Eddie on Sunday. He's not going to blow the ball. He's not going to blow it by anybody. But he's also not going to get you beat. Like he's going to keep you in every single game. So yeah, and this Texas offense or the Tennessee offense is coming alive. I wish I was on the show last Thursday when I wasn't sick to talk about this, because a lot of people didn't realize they're getting 2 of their top 4 hitters back that hadn't even played all season long. And literally they ended up leading off and hitting 4th.
It moves the assembly line out of the leadoff spot, which I think is a big one.
Yeah, and that's what because they basically they tried Jay Abernathy. He's been okay, but not great. That's not who you want to have leading off. Like if he's at his best, you do, because of how fast he is and a threat to steal base every time. They literally tried Henry Ford at leadoff, and it was like, hey, Christian Moore. Like think of it from a Tennessee standpoint, Christian Moore led off the entire year when he won the Triple Crown in the SEC, and it worked for Tennessee. Obviously, they won a national championship that year, but this lineup is obviously not as deep as the Tennessee lineup that hit 172 home runs. So you can't just have your power guy in that leadoff spot and not creating RBIs. So yeah, I think that's been a huge factor. I think this offense I would say it's kind of hitting its stride now. Like even the midweeks aren't letdowns anymore. Like scoring, like they're kind of scoring at will. I mean, they scored 9 this week, so it wasn't fantastic, but that's still like
they scored it early though.
Yeah,
just to give them a little bit of credit.
Yeah, they'll take that, and so I think it's also the Tennessee's first home SEC series. We know how it's also the opening weekend of the brand new ballpark in SEC play, so it's going to be full. The only thing is we'll see what time Tennessee plays basketball on Sunday, if they're able to advance and beat Miami tomorrow. I think they play in the afternoon tomorrow, so it shouldn't interfere. So we will see from that standpoint. But
I think they're off a spring break too, so I mean that'll be
it should be.
The frat house has got the music behind them going. It'll be a fun time.
Always. Yeah. Why is it not?
All right, we had a few questions that I wanted to ask you. Okay. Caden Sorrell has hit 11 home runs, and Bear Harrison has been hit by pitch 12 times. Who do you think finishes with more?
I'll say Bear Harrison hit by pitches.
That's an interesting one because he's not really hitting that well, but he's getting hit.
Correct. And from a baseball standpoint, I mean, you've been around it long enough. It is one of those years, and there's always guys in these years, and I've had them on every team, where it's like even if they weren't hit by pitch guys previously, there are certain years where for some reason they just become ball magnets. And that seems like the case so far.
All right, this is a two-parter. South Carolina obviously faces Arkansas this weekend. They go to Charlotte to face UNC. They go to Foley to play Georgia. Wofford, then Texas comes to Founders, then College of Charleston. What will be South Carolina's record in these games? And I have another one to ask you after it.
Yeah, I text you back. I said I would be generous and give them 2. And that generous is probably having to win Wofford and Charleston, which are not givens.
Yeah.
Like I don't think they beat North Carolina, even though it's neutral in Charlotte. I don't see, like I said, I think they get swept this weekend. And then they're playing Georgia at Georgia. where you need offense to keep up, and the South Carolina team doesn't have that so far. So it's like, yeah, you're looking at May 31st against Wofford, and then April 7th against College Charleston to hopefully get 2 in that stretch.
How many teams in the country do you think would have an over 500 record in these games?
Oh, would have an over 500 record. I mean, it's less than 5. And it could be just any given weekend thing. I would say definitely UCLA, because I'm still the highest on them. I think Georgia Tech outscores Arkansas and probably Georgia. And I can't put Texas against themselves.
Or Georgia against themselves, or Arkansas. Maybe Mississippi State, but Mississippi State just went up and lost to Arkansas.
Yeah, but no, I would still, and I'd pick Texas in a series. Texas at home, which is what it is. I'd pick Texas at home in a series against Mississippi State right now. So, yeah, you're talking maybe 3.
Last question here is we got a little time before the SEC kicks off. Who is the best hitter in the SEC that is hitting down in the bottom of the order?
Oh, Bryce Chance.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, I'll go very bottom of the order. Because you talk about a guy, you talk about a second leadoff hitter. It's kind of an old school philosophy is we want somebody in the 9-hole who is not our worst hitter, but also but gets on base a lot. And Bryce Chance is, I can't remember if he's either a junior or senior by now, but it feels like he's been there for a long time.
I think he's like a 5th year.
Yeah, it feels like he's been there forever. But yeah, so I'll take Bryce Chance, because that's a good question. I'll take Bryce Chance just because of how much he means to this offense, because we talk about like him setting the lineup for Teal and Reese when he's on base, and because he's another stolen base guy too. If he can get himself in a scoring position early in counts, that kind of changes this Mississippi State offense.
He's got a good walk-up song too. It's the Sons of Anarchy theme.
Really? I like that.
I'm going to kind of do a little cop-out and go with Jake Durr, because he was hitting 4-hole, and then Wesley Jordan and Chris Akopian came back. So now he's hitting down in the bottom of the lineup.
Mm-hmm.
I think Pack is another one who's sitting down in the bottom of the order that's taking a lot of really, really good at-bats.
Yeah. I just want to see more SEC at-bats out of him. I know he looked very good, obviously, opening weekend at home against – we talked about the Ole Miss pitching staff already that was kind of outside of Hunter Elliott. Wasn't fantastic last weekend. So, yeah, this weekend will say a lot about, like, this pitching staff is going to be better than the pitching staff he's ever seen in his life, like, obviously being a true freshman. So, yeah, if he hits also this weekend, then, yeah, they've got big things coming for that kid.
I also was going to say Omar Cerna, but then I guess Jay Johnson heard me and
moved him out.
Put Omar Cerna in the 4-hole, because he's been hitting down near the bottom of the order if he's been in the lineup at all. I think Colby Branch has been hitting down in the bottom of the order too at times. Mm-hmm. Obviously, with the way he's been swinging it, I think he's more near the top. But, I mean, it's just some of these SEC lineups are so deep. But that is all that we have time for. We're going to be tweeting live these 2 SEC games that we have tonight. We're going to be around all weekend talking SEC. I'll be at LSU Saturday, A&M Sunday. I think you're going to be at Lindsey Nelson, right?
I'm hoping to get there one of the days, probably Sunday.
Perfect. It's going to be a fantastic weekend. We'll be back 7-6 Central Monday. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in.